So I actually found the church key today, so I don't have to use a screwdriver to open this paint can. I know here in Pennsylvania we call these church keys. Is that a universal term, though? I never really thought about it. Let me know in the comments. Hey, it's Pete. Welcome back to my workshop. This week I'm continuing on with the restoration of the turret tailstock for the Clausing Colchester lathe. There's a lot to be done, so I'm going to get right into it. I got quite a few parts that need to be derusted, so I'm just going to throw them into this container of Evapo-Rust, and I'm trying to throw in as many things as I can find because I don't have quite enough to fill this container, so I'm trying to raise the level by just throwing extra stuff in. Alright, in the interest of doing a nice job here, I want to remove the ball oilers so I can finish the surface here. Unfortunately, there doesn't appear to be any way to get these ones out without actually damaging them. At least no way that I could discover. The problem is that the bore does not go the whole way through, so there's no way to punch them out from the back side. So I can put a smaller punch in, but that has the effect of knocking the ball out. Of course, destroying the oiler. So we're going to have to buy new ones. If we run a tap down inside of it, I can use that to pull it out with. There we go. Let's see that bottomed out. And now it'll take... can pull it right out. Now I just have to get that off the end of my tap. All right, before we go any further, I just want to do a quick test on this to see if we might have any lead paint contained here. That's going to let me know what I have to do as far as disposal goes, whether I have to take any special precautions or not. I've got these lead test swabs, and all you have to do with these is dip them in white vinegar, and that will activate them. And then you rub them over the surface that you want to test, and you then observe the color change. And if it goes to a pink or red or violet here, that indicates that there is lead present. So we're just going to do a quick test. So wait for this to change color. It starts off as an amber color, and then you're supposed to rub it on the surface for 30 seconds. All right, and then we look at it, and I'm not seeing any appreciable change here at all. It still has the pretty much the same amber color it started with. So I think we're fairly safe here, which is good because it means I can actually do some sanding and I don't have to worry so much about what happens to the dust. And also I have a lot of paint that had stripped off of this when this was soaking in the purple power. So I've got all that residue laying in the bottom of that container, and it's going to mean it's a lot easier to dispose of that as well. Yeah, this is not doing anything. I really am impressed with this stuff. I can't get over the surprise I feel every time when I pull a part out, and it's completely removed the rust, but hasn't appeared to damage the metal in any way. I remember the days of slathering something down with navel jelly and attacking it with a wire brush or any number of other means of trying to get the rust off. This is just like practically magic to me. Well, based on the number of marks here from set screws, 1, 2, 3, 4, I am not the first person to get inside this thing. This is the central post that the turret rotates around. I'm going to clean it up a little bit, and then we're going to apply the Oxpho-Blue solution to it. That's going to restore the black finish to it. I'll buff it down with steel wool, and then give it a coat of oil just to restore the sheen to it. Now that these parts have all been freshly derusted, I want to get some paint on them before they start rusting up again. To be truthful, I'm not 100% sold on this color. It is growing on me, but I feel like I'd like it to be maybe a shade or two darker. In reality, it is darker in person than it appears on video. I'm not going to bother cleaning this paintbrush. I'm just going to do this. And I'll still be able to use that tomorrow. The posts that lock the tools in place have a bit of a problem. In addition to not looking very nice, they're also a little bit damaged. Whether it was through just the years of use or over clamping, the lower lip of the clamping surface has been deformed a little bit. This makes it difficult to put the posts down in the turret, as well as getting the tools to slide in freely. I'm going to spin them up on the lathe and hit them with a combination of Scotch-Brite and a file to try to get them cleaned up a little bit. Cleaning up the top of the tool posts, they're still hammered on pretty good. I think my plan here is I'm going to put them back in the lathe, give them a skim just to give a clean surface there, and then I'm going to re-stamp the numbers. I had a little bit of anxiety while I was stamping these, and one of them I had to put back in the lathe and skim it again just to give it a second try. But overall, I'm really happy with the way these look and how they came out, especially when you compare them to the original stampings that are on the top of the turret. There's at least 2 stampings that you can see were double struck from the factory. So I've been giving some thought to how I want to handle these posts that lock the tools in place. I really do like the bright finish after machining these off and re-stamping them, but I don't think it's realistic, at least in my shop, for them to stay looking like this for any length of time. Some of my machines I don't touch for months at a time, and I just think long term, at some point in time, I'm going to neglect these and they're going to start rusting up. So I've decided I think I'm going to go ahead and apply bluing compound to the whole thing here. What I want to do is I'm going to dip them basically to try to get as even coverage as possible and see how that goes. Before I do that, I want to brush the threads with alcohol and clean any remaining oil that may be down in the bottom of the thread, and we'll go from there. There's actually quite a bit of dirt down in the root of these threads. Once you pour the Oxpho-Blue out of the bottle, you're really not supposed to put it back in. So what I intend to do, I have this piece of PVC plumbing here. This is actually a plug for 1.25 inch fittings, and I bought it because it perfectly fits this size here. So I'm going to be able to put the absolute minimum amount of the Oxpho-Blue solution in there and not waste any. So that's my plan at this point. First, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to fill this with alcohol to figure out exactly how much I need to put in it, and that'll give me a reference for how much Oxpho-Blue to put in it, because the isopropyl alcohol is obviously much cheaper than the Oxpho-Blue is. Because I also don't want to get it on the shaft, so I really just want to come up just to the washer. Okay. So that's about the right amount. and it's not much at all. It's probably not more than 1/4 of an inch inside of that container. All right, let's give this a first try and see if my idea is going to work. All right, that's just coming up to the washer there. All right, let's see what this does. I'm really pleased with how well this pipe fitting is fitting. That's a bit redundant. And I don't think the camera can focus on this, but I'm using it's just a little over, it's not even 1/4 of an inch in the bottom there, I think. It just perfectly displaces that and comes up right even with the washer. And the last one. It's looking pretty good. Let's give it another visit to the dunk tank. I think 2 rounds through the dunk tank should make them look pretty good. All right, and let's see how our paintbrush is doing. This has actually been a couple days, so we'll see if this is still usable. This is just a cheap $2 paintbrush from Harbor Freight, so I was certainly not going to spend the time cleaning it. So it's actually been probably about 3 days since I just originally wrapped this paintbrush up in my gloves and sealed it up that way, and it's still perfectly usable. Mostly I just want to do this center hub here. And I'm not going to bother taping anything up here. I'm just going to paint this and try to be as neat as possible, but any overage after this dries, I'm just going to put it in the lathe and clean off any of the paint, both in the bore and around the perimeter. All right, the last thing I want to do tonight before going in is to put some citrus strip on this. Now that we know we're dealing with paint that doesn't have lead in it, give this a coat of the citrus strip and let it do its job. And if any gets on the workbench, that's okay. It needs to be repainted anyways. Well, I guess that's good enough for now. So about 12 hours have gone by. I was actually kind of concerned that it wasn't going to do anything, but it actually did pretty well here. So this stuff here seemed like it was fairly impenetrable, but it actually worked out pretty well. So we're going to scrape this off, and we'll get on to the next thing. I think what we might be seeing here is some evidence of the original bodywork that was done on this, because that it feels different. It's almost like a putty. Now, I'm not concerned about taking this down to bare metal. That's not necessary. All we need to do is get a smooth finish. We'll do maybe some filling in here just to cover up some of the roughness, and then we'll be good to go. All right, I'm going to let that dry. Then we'll do some sanding on it. We'll apply a little glazing compound in some of these rough areas to fill cracks and things, and then we'll paint it. All right, I'm going to mix up a little bit of this metal glaze. This stuff you just squeeze out however much you want. And then what you're supposed to do for the hardener is just squeeze out a bead. Move this up here where you can see it. From one end of the puddle to the other. And then mix that in until it's a consistent color. I've got links down in the video description to all the tools and products that I use in these videos. If you want to check them out, they're down there. Now, the first coat you're supposed to put on and really press it into the surface. You can always go back and add more. But you want to make sure you get into all the nooks and crannies there. And this is not for filling big holes. This is literally called a metal glaze. It's somewhat self-leveling. I think before I mix any more up to do the remainder of this, I'm going to let this stuff fully cure so that I can sand it and see just what kind of finish we can expect to get out of it. All right, we've got the body filler here pretty well smoothed out. Prior to priming now, we have to sand it with about 320 grit sandpaper. This will just be a quick go over here. And we give it a coat of primer, and that will reveal any little imperfections that we can't see due to this modeled surface. Once everything is all one continuous color, it'll be much easier to spot our imperfections. All right, I'm going to get this wiped off and then taped up, and I'll bring you back for the priming. All right, I got this thing all cleaned up and taped up, and I'm going to use this primer on. I haven't tried this stuff before. This is a custom coat from Custom Shop. We did the 320 sanding, wiped it down with alcohol, taped it up, and now we're going to try this. This is supposed to be a high build primer. Well, this video is stretching on a bit long this week, and need to call it an end here at some point. I didn't get as far as I had hoped to. Next week, I'm not sure if we're going to be continuing on with this project or if we're going to be switching back to the Centroid retrofit. Now that the holidays are over, hopefully some of my vendors are going to get back to me with some concrete answers on some questions I have about possible spindle retrofit. So that's about it for this week. And as always, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll catch you next week.